Hi, my loves, and welcome to my channel where we talk about sovereign power, spirituality, sexual energy, and in particular, womb healing. And in this video, I want to share with you why womb healing, and in particular, shamanic womb healing, is so important, is so powerful, and a massive part of our purification process because it is linked to our sexual energy. And when we are embarking on this journey of awakening and healing, we must go through the portals of the Kundalini and especially the sexual energy. When I, a few years ago, had my Kundalini awakening, and I'm sorry for the noise, there's some construction going on outside. When I had my Kundalini awakening, and you can imagine that when the Kundalini begins to activate, the Kundalini sits at the base of our spine, and it's basically connected to two polarities, which is our masculine and feminine. Now, with the activation of the Kundalini, it creates a massive tension, and that tension is the sexual energy. So when it starts to being activated, it's almost overwhelming, and the point is not to release it, the point is not to do something that expels it, but the point is to sit with it, because the actual point of that activation of the sexual energy is to move it all the way up our spine so that it can merge with Shiva on the crown, because the sexual energy is what we refer to as Shakti. And in the beginning, it starts with an incredible fire, an incredible arousal that's almost unbearable. And then it eventually begins to move up. And as it moves up, the Shakti shuts down that arousal so that all the centers can be purified. And in my Kundalini, going back to the womb awakening, it started with the complete purification of my womb. And why that was so scary, it's because I saw my womb as a complete graveyard. And I remember sitting there and the tears were flowing and me just thinking, oh my God, how am I going to give birth? Why is my womb dead? Why is there nothing? Why is this a cemetery? It was really scary. But then once that was purified, it started moving up the channels, clearing everything else in each and every chakra and energy center of my body. And this is where we are entering the power of the womb. Each purification goes through the womb, must go through the womb. The womb is, whether we have a physical womb or not, by the way, this counts for men as well, and for women who have had to remove their physical womb, is a portal. It's a portal of death and life for a reason, in physical sense, but also in an energetic sense. And when we work on our womb, we work especially in shamanic womb healing. And I have created this special program, Shamanic Womb Healing, that I will link below. So you can, of course, sign up for that group online program, but also book a one-on-one with me. Is because each part of the womb, each ovary, each location is associated with an element. And when you know about shamans and the ancient teachings, elements as well as certain deities, but also certain mystical creatures, for example, are related to these parts and to these elements. Like the dragons, for example, are angelic beings, but they're also related very much to Mother Earth. And when we speak of fire, what does the dragon do? The dragon spits fire, and the dragon is also connected to the primordial mothers here on Earth. And if for some of you this is too mystical, just bear with me. The womb is our powerful portal because why? It stores sexual energy, and sexual energy is the source of creation. Everything that is ever built, that is ever done, goes through sexual energy. Now, sexual energy is the one thing in this life that we need to begin to get control of, because there is so much shame, but also misuse associated with that. And why we need to move up these energy centers and purify the womb is because when we just stay in that sexual energy, we stay in the lower centers and we stay in lust. And the purification of the womb, the purification of your centers teaches you about the pure power of sexual energy, its actual innocence, and how healing and purifying it is. And I want to go with you for a few elements in the womb healing to show you how important it is to really understand not just your body, but how your relationships in your life have played out, how you're actually dealing with life, your actions, your behaviors, because of these karmic, ancestral, as well as traumatic imprints in our womb. And when we are also intimate with others, those energetic debrises can stay in our womb and literally distort our balance. So why the purification process? It is about releasing and cleansing all of those energetic debris that can stem from many, many lifetimes, not even in this one. And you will notice that. You will notice that in pattern that you can't break. You will notice that in an incredible feeling of being stuck. You will notice that in your fear of really surrendering to love, surrendering to intimacy. And you will also feel that when you are not really connected to your body, when you have no sense truly of your own worth, and when you had a lot of core wounds, such as abandonment and betrayal, and that again can also come through your ancestral lineage. So it doesn't have to be something you physically for yourself experienced, but you carry those imprints in your DNA, in your cellular memory. So the purification of the womb is a purification of these memories, bringing them back to a state of equilibrium, back to balance. And in my shamanic womb healing, we are working in particular with 4 elements. So this is, of course, earth, fire, air, and water, because these are the main predominant elements that are literally not just giving us the gifts in those parts of the womb, but also certain blocks when they're out of balance. So they can be in an excess and also in a deficit. And how is this playing out in our lives, but also in our relationships? So when we look, for example, at the element of earth, earth stands for our menstruation as women in particular, but also for our motherhood, for the earth cycles. How much are we connected to ourselves? How safe do we feel? How supported by life and by the people around us, but especially by ourselves do we feel? How are we connected to our menstrual cycles as women? You see, earth as an element of sexual energy brings in us this deep, grounded sexual presence, which awakens the Shaktis. When we go back to, for example, the Kundalini awakening, which awakens Shakti's stem cells. Yeah, and they bring your physical body into harmonic resonance with the earth's hum, with everything that is there, that roots you, that is stable for you, where you feel grounded. And isn't that beautiful when we are intimate with someone and we just feel safe, protected, nourished, but also really, really safe in our body, in our roots, and we are having our feet firm on the ground. In relationships, in particular for women, the masculine actually looks for this energy to ground and nourish him. So when this element is out of balance, a woman can literally trigger early childhood issues in a man. And this is very often experienced in relationships that form at first a super high sexual and romantic connection, but then fizzles out due to lack of commitment of the man. And when you listen a lot of times to the stories out there, maybe you have experienced it yourself, then it seems so easy these days to have, of course, intimacy with a man, to meet a man, to have this fire, to have this connection. But often we experience rejection then and a lack of commitment, and we do not understand why that is. And a big part of that truly is energetic, because whatever happens in our relationships, it's energy. We are not consciously aware of it. The man isn't consciously aware of it, but the energies do their natural thing. So a man feels deep down that this woman isn't rooted, isn't stable. And this will cause in him, if he is stable, if he's rooted in who he is, the issue that he might not want to stick around. So if you are experiencing that, especially in patterns, not just as a one-off, then this might be one of the reasons. Yeah. The earth element in the womb itself is a deep sense of feeling at home in your body and on earth. It's literally the feeling of you have arrived. And when this element is blocked, is distorted, is not cleaned out, then we do not feel supported by life, by other people. And you will also find yourself often to give more than you receive. because there is a sense of abandonment by life and also often by the masculine figures in your life. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the romantic partnership. It can be a business partnership with a man. And of course, the relationship to your father or main provider figure. Now let's move on to the fire. We are going to go a bit through the elements. The fire obviously represents our sacred sexuality, creation, and also our passion, our creativity. And in women in particular, this is a very, very important element. When I go through my clients through the womb cleansing, two of the strongest elements that are completely out of balance and not aligned are usually fire and water, and then earth follows, and then air. And this is in my experience, because our sacred sexuality is not really understood, is not really known outside the bedroom and outside how we are with our intimate partners, and sometimes not even inside of it. So when women have an excess of fire, that means we are not too sexual. So I don't want to make this, you're too much of this, too little of that. I'm just giving you examples of how the energies can play out when we have an excess of fire. So when there is too much of it, and meaning too much, not in the broader sense of how it should be, I mean too much for your own energy system, because this is about you. This is about your womb, your energetics, and your body, and they will be different for everybody. So when you as a woman have too much fire within your own system, then this can burn in your relationships, for example, through the man, when you feel that they aren't good enough or strong enough for you, but then only to be rejected by those you actually feel are strong enough. So let me know in the comments below if this is something you have experienced again on a more frequent basis. When we have a deficit of fire, then the woman can tend to feel overlooked and ignored by the masculine. And also there is a fear of putting yourself fully out there and being seen. So you're also dimming your light and keeping yourself small. The gift of fully activating your fire energy and putting it back into balance is that you are beginning to truly give birth to your deepest desires, and you are confident to present them to the world from your fullest being, from your heart. This is the confidence that we have, this inner radiance, this magnetism that comes through authenticity, that then also inspires others around us. And when this element is blocked, when we are having, either an excess or a deficit of it, then there can be a disconnect between your true feminine aspect. So it can make you really competitive, hard, and sometimes even manipulative, which comes from the false masculine sense, because fire is associated with the father energy in shamanism, with the masculine energy. So this can also lead you to eventually really feel empty inside. When we go to the air element, air is all about, as you can imagine, the connection also to the divine. Of course, also our mental concepts, but especially the connection to source. So this is all about inspiration, freedom, and clarity that we have in our lives about the decisions we need to make, about the way we go about things. So when this air is out of balance, it can create a sexual shutdown and an intellectual and mental predisposition, because you like to be in control. You need to be in control, which prevents you from really surrendering and from a deep sensual and emotional intimacy with another. And this can also create a sense of superiority and judgment to anything that you perceive to be beneath you. So this is also, again, a huge topic of the false self that comes into that. And when we have too little of air, then relationships can be too practical and too focused on material factors, because we are lacking that divine inspiration. We are lacking that clarity that we need, and we try again to control situations and our emotions because it's difficult for us to emotionally connect. And we keep our relationships very practical on the material world and the needs that we want to be met at that point in time. When we really want to unlock, though, the gifts of this element, meaning bringing it back to balance, back to an equilibrium, then the relationships that we are having are going to be very powerful, are going to be divine. Because here it's the point where your intuition is going to be at an all-time high, and you fully trust in life, you trust in your ability to move forward, and you embody this deepest soul wisdom, the ancient knowledge that is connected to source, that resides within you and is there in your body and your being. And in relationships, it allows you to be connected to that higher part of yourself and also see that in another. It allows you that you trust and you surrender in that moment, especially in your relationships, but for any other area of your life for that matter. And when this again is not in balance, when we don't look at it the way that we should, when we don't clean it, then it creates that block in that part inside our womb. And that block is basically showing itself in confusion and stagnation. Here we have truly betrayal and a sense of isolation as a core wound, that we feel alone, we feel like we are not supported. But also we have experienced a lot of situations in our lives that make us feel like we have been betrayed. When we go in particular to the water, now water is flowing. Water is the essence of feminine energy, of our intuition. And it also stands for our ability to be receptive, to surrender, to be with the flow and go with the flow of life, like the currents in the ocean, to flow with the current of our own life. When we have too much of water, when we are not balanced in our other elements and with our masculine energy, then this makes women often too passive and also not being able to truly protect our own boundaries. And when we are in relationships, this can often lead a woman to be overly motherly and trying to fix her partner, which is what many of us have at perhaps some in our relationships really try to do, to be the mother figure and to try to save our man, which is not really our role to do, because it's a fully embodied feminine with a purified and balanced womb. We know our role as a spiritual protector, but how we go about it and how we guide the man is more through inspired being and inspired action, versus pushing him like a mother, maybe even blaming him and judging him and punishing him, like sometimes a mother can do to her child in order to get him to change his ways or do things differently. When we have too little water, so there is a deficiency of it, then it can make us also, again, too uptight and too controlling, because here we are too much in our masculine. And it doesn't really allow us to surrender to love and to orgasms when it comes into our intimate life. It is difficult for us to really surrender because we are, again, so much in our control mechanisms. And that's why often women who have a deficit of water, they are not trusting love. They cannot fully surrender to love because they don't feel safe in their own emotions. They can tend to turn to career for safety and control because it feels like something that we can easier control than our emotions. And haven't we experienced that to some point in our life? And the gifts of this water element, when it's fully activated, it is the seed of our psychic intuition. So it's really that place where supernatural powers are coming out of us. And we all have supernatural powers. And what does supernatural mean? It simply means it's not of this world, but most of us, we are not of this world. We are just in a human body experiencing life. So when you are aligned with your water, meaning your masculine and feminine are in balance, then you are also aligned going back to the natural flow of your life. Absolutely being present, trusting, opening yourself up and being receptive. And when you shut that down, when you don't trust it, again, it is difficult for you to connect to the magic in your life. There is also a denial about the true extent of your emotional wounds, and you're guarding them often with anger and resistance. And this, again, is very, very subconscious. So there is an element of struggling to trust the masculine, so the masculine inside of us, but also the masculines in our life, and also to surrender to love because of your anger that you have not allowed yourself to feel and release and to acknowledge and to transform, you have closed your heart in order to survive. So when we have experienced a lot of wounds, a lot of situations in early childhood, or maybe throughout our experiences, can lead many of us to close our hearts. But our hearts are the gate that allows our whole being to merge, to feel love, to give love and compassion to ourselves and also to another. And again, when we don't have that, we tend to retreat into intellectual realms. And again, we value control and success more than we do our own inner being. So this was a very quick overview over a shamanic wound healing, over the elements, how they're playing out in our lives. As I said, they're connected to different parts in our bodies. And the way I do this program in particular, it is very much through induced meditation, but also literally it brings you on a journey of truly seeing the root and seeing the truth of situations and things in your life that you want to resolve. You see, womb work is a very specific work that cannot be done through other elements. And when we enter the realm of the womb, we enter the realm truly of our power, especially as women. For men, this work is a little bit different, but it's just as powerful. And if you have ever done sacred ceremonies, like I, for example, have done plenty of them, but in particular my ayahuasca that I did in Peru, I had my own rebirth there as well. But the men that had their rebirth experience had it as well through the womb. So it was almost the same that I had and another lady who had a rebirth in our experience. So it's really independent from gender. It's all about that energetic space. So as women, we need to start honoring the womb. We need to start connecting with her. Usually we do that only when we are on our periods, or when we are trying to get pregnant, or when there's something wrong, when we have fibroids, when we have polyps, when we have issues. But you see, everything that manifests in the womb as a health issue has its root in an energetic component. And in shamanic womb healing, we go into the field where the information is stored beyond space and time, because anything that happens to the womb in this physical reincarnation is a manifestation of that which is there as an information in the energetic realm. You have to look at it similar, like this energetic realm, the field is like the software, and our body and the womb, the energetic womb, as well as the physical womb, are the hardware. So we are constantly receiving those information. So we need to go make those shifts and changes in the software to then receive different instructions in our hardware. And I'm going to record at some point as well a meditation into your own womb as a womb healing modality that you can do when you go to bed or wherever you feel like it. This will be for my next video. I hope that this clarified many things for you, and that you have perhaps just opened your mind and understood certain components about us, in particular as women, that we need to work on. Because again, the womb is the seat of our death and rebirth. It's the portal. And the sexual energy is the activator of all of what we want to create in our lives, but also of all of that is distorted and blocked. I'm sending you all so much love. Please feel free below to comment if you have any questions or anything else for that matter.